Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
And we are almost through game week 22, well into the second half of the season now. Conveniently, James has started scheduling podcasts before Spurs play.
I'm not stupid, am I?
So we do have one game to go tonight. I don't think the ownership amongst Spurs and Chelsea assets is huge, other than a handful of players. I mean, Kane's obviously being sold in mass droves. So Son,
but Son's still very, very heavily owned, and Son is probably the difference between, because I don't own him, is probably the difference between me seeing a small green arrow and a red arrow this week. Trust me, I hope I'm sitting here this time tomorrow and I've got a red arrow, mate, but I can't particularly see it, to be honest. The Son's obviously heavily owned, the Chelsea guys not so much. Listen, if you've got anyone else from Spurs, I suggest you sell them anyway.
This is a brutal game week, and we'll obviously give everybody a rundown of our game weeks. I might end up on, well, I know I'm going to end up on 72 points and a red arrow. But before we do, James, this is not going to be very good for the audio listeners, but if you don't follow us or subscribe to us on YouTube, you can head over to Planet FPL, youtube.com/Planet FPL, where you can see our faces. I have something, James. I have something.
Oh, chocolate chip cookie.
It is a chocolate chip cookie because it's the closest thing I could find that resembles pie. And I'm going to eat some humble pie after what happened last night, because I couldn't give a shit if I get a red arrow, mate. My football team played incredibly well, and I need to eat some humble pie because of our friend Jlings, or whatever he wants to call himself.
Oh, young Jesse Lingard.
I did say that it'd be garbage, or why are we buying him? And he made me eat some humble pie. So while I take a bite out of this cookie, why don't you tell everybody how your game week's going so far?
Jesus Christ, the cookie just disappeared.
I just put it down, mate. I just put it down.
Just eat it whole.
It's called a humble cookie.
Yeah, I mean, that says something, doesn't it? 72 for you, red arrow. I'm all out on 76, small green at the moment. That's incredible, isn't it? But then I've ended up with a team, when I wildcarded in game week 16, I had a team that was moderately template, moderately differential, somewhere in the middle. My team's now ended quite template. And the reason my team's ended quite template is, obviously, I've had real jumps in the last few weeks. So other people are buying the players that I've already got as well. So my team looks very template now. And there was so many highly owned players who returned last night. I mean, you take all them forwards in the kind of 6 million to 7 million bracket, Watkins, Wilson, Bamford, Antonio, Calvert-Lewin, they all returned. And by the way, every single one of them could have got more than what they got.
Correct.
Then you've got people like Souček, Rafinha in terms of sort of FPL Twitter anyway. Rafinha is very popular on Twitter. Fernandes, obviously. Rashford, even at the back, you've got obviously the City defensive.
Double City defense.
James Justin, he's really popular. James Justin is like 2 points off being in team of the season now. He's 2 points behind Andrew Robertson. And there you go. If anyone wins.
His run for the goal, I mean, was fantastic.
I don't know what he ends up doing now. I mean, no complaints. I mean, I benched him, but this is the point, right? So I said I've been quite lucky with benching points recently. I've had benching headaches every week, like a lot of people have got at the moment, and had 5 and 4 points on the bench the last couple of weeks. This week, James Justin on his own, 15 points. But the only choice in my team would have been, do I play him over Souček? Souček's got 9. Okay, so I'm 6 points off. But if I bench Souček, everyone will go, well, you can't bench Souček.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you can't.
It's difficult. It is difficult. I think our Norwich correspondent, Mark at FPL Badger, you can follow him, showed the hat trick of benchings, which was 15 points this week for Justin, 15 points last week for Souček, and 15 points the week before. And I forget who the third player
Bamford
was.
In the middle.
Bamford. So in the middle. So that's 3 15 pointers in a row. And there's going to be a number of people that will have benched at least 2 out of those.
There would be people that benched all 3 of them.
Yeah, I think it's hard in this game when you have a player on your bench that scores points. Because it's frustrating, because you'd want to think, why didn't I play him? But if you imagine a real football game, like if your bench is scoring points, then it means your bench is in form, which can only be a good thing. Because
Exactly. Yeah.
we need our benches right now. So I don't see, when I see bench points and I think, frustrating that I didn't start them, at least those players are in form. Like I benched Suj this week, but Phil Foden didn't get any minutes. So 9 points. Thank you very much.
My only outfield players who didn't return was my captain, Mo Salah, and Andrew Robertson. They're the only two outfield players I had that didn't return.
Yeah, so same for me. And then I've got Dallas. So I got 3 that didn't return.
So pre-game with him, let's be realistic. It's easy to always say in hindsight, am I going to pick Justin over like Robertson or Salah? No. I mean, your hindsight, you go back and you go, oh yeah, I had captain Bruno rather than Salah. Yeah, because we all knew Man United were going to win 9-0, right? I mean, at 4-0 or 5-0, Bruno didn't have anything remarkably. So all the returns have come very late. So literally no regrets on the game week. Good stuff. And like you, if I've got points on the bench, I don't mind that because even the worst case, their value is going to keep going up.
Of course. In a game week, at the moment, the average is 50 points. And to be fair, like whether it's a red or green arrow, you may as well call it a grey arrow for me because it's going to be 20,000 up.
Yeah, it's going to be the same for me.
So 72 points on an average of 50 and to be flat basically tells me that the active managers, so let's call it the top 2 million, 2.5 million, all had really good weeks and a lot of dead teams completely wasted away. Because I haven't seen, like, even a mini league that I'm in that is competitive. I was thinking, you know, I might make some ground up on these boys, 84 and 86. I looked down the Planet FPL Correspondence League. Everybody's in the 70s and 80s and 90s. This was a bad week if you had a bad week, a really bad week. And if you had a good week, you probably only just kept up with people, really.
Well, top 10K average was 74. So I think that gives you a better understanding of kind of what the average would be in, say, the top million. I mean, where you ranked at the moment?
I am exactly around 1 million.
There you go. And I'm at basically hovering around 350K. So, I mean, I'd say across the top million, your average would be above 70.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
My Europe team, for new listeners that might not know, we do a Europe versus rest of the world challenge, which we talk about with our Patreons, sitting on 90 points with Souček first sub, and I've got Reece James to play tonight. So I'm hoping Reece James gets benched, doesn't get any minutes, and I'm on 99 and I'll have a flake with that.
Yeah, I expect you to turn up for flake to that podcast tomorrow morning if that happens, mate. My team, the rest of the world team, is on 22 at the moment, mate. To be fair, I've got quite a bit of involvement in that game tonight with Mendy, Thiago Silva, Son, and I think maybe someone else even as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to fill others in, the patrons obviously know my rest of the world team's become a bit of a comedy this year. And to an extent, that's the exact term I used on Tuesday when I brought David Luiz into the rest of my world team, saying let's make it a proper comedy. Oh yeah, it's a tear up. It's so much fun.
And that's probably a nice segue, James, into the games that we're going to talk about, because the Wolves-Arsenal game was one of the early first kickoffs on Tuesday. But we'll start with Sheffield United, West Brom, going in order. I thought West Brom would get something out of this. I really feel like at halftime, Chris Wilder, he said it in his post-match press conference. He said to the guys, there's no point in having regrets tomorrow about what's happening. And they came back and they took the points. So neither of these sides are interesting me from an FPL point of view, and I don't think they should be. If anyone from the bottom 3 right now is going to come out and make the great escape, Sheffield United at least have the experience and track record that you think they might be able to do it.
Nope.
Yeah, I don't think they will. Just to be clear, but if any one of the 3 was going to.
What, the bottom 3? No, if any of the bottom 3 gets out, it'll still be Fulham.
Yeah, but Fulham can't win ugly. This is the problem, right? They play nice football and lose games. They need to be able to win ugly to be able to get out of it. Sheffield United can.
This whole period where they've been better, and it's worth saying they've won 2 games, right? This whole period where they've been better, their fixture list has been brutal. And it's going to start to clear up a little bit for Fulham. Whereas you look at, say, West Brom are about to go into Tottenham, stop laughing at the back, and Manchester United. And Sheffield United have got tougher fixtures coming up as well. They've got Chelsea. I don't even know who Sheffield United.
Us afterwards.
Yeah, they've got Chelsea before that. Who's Sheffield United got this weekend? I don't even know. Shows how out of touch I am with their fixtures, because you wouldn't be looking at their assets.
Chelsea, West Ham. Chelsea this weekend, then West Ham.
Oh, yeah,
then
Chelsea
Fulham.
This weekend. West Ham, and then Fulham, yeah. Okay, so Chelsea, West Ham next, and West Brom, we've got Tottenham and Man United next. It's not great, is it? No, listen, this game could have probably gone either way. I mean, like, Aaron Ramsdale made a brilliant save at 1-1 at point-blank range. Sheffield United really went for it second half. They left themselves exposed in the first half, and even more so in the second, because they went for it. They really tried to win the game, and that's credit to them. Little things at Sheffield United that reminded me more of stuff from last season, like numbers in the box, overloads in the wide areas, and a shout out for their new signing, John Fleck.
Signing.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw Chris Wilder's press conference pre-game.
No, I didn't.
Hilarious. Or many of you, have you seen Sean Dyche's this week?
Yeah, well, the one where he's talking about Chris Evans and Mick Hucknall and all the rest of it. It just feels like everyone's just got on board and thought, yeah, let's just have a bit of fun.
Basically, yeah, that's exactly what they've done. So John Fleck has rejoined Sheffield United following his twin taking over from him for the last 9 months or so. His twin, according to Chris Wilder, his twin Jimmy has been sent back to the Highland Leagues in Scotland. And John Fleck is now back and fully fit. And he was running beyond. As we saw Lundstrom do it quite a bit in the Newcastle game. So that balance is a bit better. They still have issues. I mean, the first goal they concede, or the only goal they concede, again, comes from losing the ball in a turnover, and it's Oliver Norwood unfortunately is the one to blame again, like it was in the Tottenham game. Good win for them. I don't think it changes anything. I think the only thing it changes is until that West Brom will go down as well now. And Fulham are very close. That's nearly over. Fulham are in last chance area now, I think.
Yeah. Well, they have got a difficult game this weekend. If they don't, and I think it's going to be a really difficult game against us this weekend. So let's see what happens. If they lose that and then lose the next game after that, then you think, especially with Brighton winning yesterday as well, unexpectedly. When you get 3 points away at Liverpool, they really do feel like almost more, because you don't expect them. They're bonus points, right?
From an FPL perspective, you're not buying into any of these two teams at the moment.
You are not.
I'll let Gemarino explain why on Monday's Clash of the Correspondents with Gary Robinson. We'll be previewing West Brom and Man United on Monday. 2 Clash of Correspondents next week, actually. Got Rotation FPL and FPL Football on, previewing Chelsea Newcastle next Thursday as well. So, yeah, I'll be catching up with Gemma on Sunday after West Brom play Spurs. Can you imagine the state of that COTC if they beat us?
James, what do you say true. But what do you say at the end of every podcast? Be nice to each other. Take it easy.
Be nice to each other, yeah. We'll be nice to each other. It's just me. There's no doubt about being nice to each other. It's just going to be me, like, with a cap over my face doing the podcast, I think.
Let's talk about Wolves 2, Arsenal 1. Arsenal obviously went ahead, and commentators curse. I didn't realise this before the game. I mean, you probably have more of an idea about it. But I heard if Arsenal win, they go above Spurs in the table, and that quite took me by surprise, because I didn't realise that they
Thanks for saying that.
so soon. And then, as you'd expect, they fucked it up, didn't they? With 2 stupid red cards.
I was trying to think of a game I'd seen this season which you should take less notice of, and I can't think of one. Like, if you're looking at the result and go, oh, Wolves back and Arsenal fucked it up again, you're not seeing the story here. At the point that David Luiz was sent off, very harshly so, in my opinion, Arsenal should have had the game won, should have been finished. If Arsenal had been 3-0 up at that point, Wolves could not have complained. Saka hit the post, Pepe hit the bar, Saka had another one disallowed marginally for offside. Saka also obviously scored. I mean, he could have had a hat-trick in the first half, Bukayo Saka. Completely dominant. Wolves were as shit as they've been for quite a while. And obviously the penalty incident changes the game. And then Moutinho scores a worldie. And obviously once Arsenal down to 10 men, then they could play on the front foot a little bit more. And then once they're at 9 men, the game becomes obviously very easy. Although they nearly fucked it up, actually. So Arsenal fans should not be bothered by what happened. It's obviously, for them, it's disappointing to lose the game, but there was more positive signs here. And it was nothing in this game that made me feel better about Wolves. Apparently they had a big meeting after the Palace defeat. Well, that didn't do anything in the first half. I always feel like when you do that, that puts real pressure on yourself. A little bit like it came out that Sam had a big meeting with the West Brom players after the Man City game.
Yeah,
it's almost like a collective. We're going to put it out there that we do really care, and we're going to sort this out now. And then you step on the pitch and it's no better, and then that makes you ask questions of, are they following managers' instructions?
Yeah,
or I lost the dressing room, that kind of thing. So the fact that they've won, that's good for them, because that kind of it means that people will forget that. But no interest in Wolves based on what I saw on Tuesday night. Like, they weren't great at all. Yeah, they dominated most of the second half, but you would expect them to do so. They should have been beat by the point David Luiz got sent off.
Yeah. And obviously, you are now a curse on Arsenal players, and like you've said on pods in the last couple of days, or patrons, or whatever, you're going to buy another one, right? Just to keep cursing them and making sure that everyone gets sent off.
Yeah, I might do. Yeah, I'll find a way of buying an Arsenal player. No, I'm not buying an Arsenal player. I guess the interesting note is obviously Leno is now suspended. That red card was laughable. I haven't seen anything like that in years. I know what I mean. For David Luiz to be unlucky, Bernd Leno's got no excuse. I don't know what was going through his mind. It actually would have been better off going, "Oh, misjudged this. I'll let it go," and looking like a prick.
But
he knows the second
you don't think, right? In the split second, you don't think. That's the thing, right? It's not. I don't think he's done it on purpose.
He knows the second he does it, he's getting sent off. Like he's still in midair, and he's like, "I've been sent off."
Why have I done it?
He knows it. Yeah. He's obviously going to miss the game at Villa this week. Matt Ryan, who obviously joined them from Brighton, apparently he's still not training. Doesn't mean he won't train tomorrow and play on Saturday, but it probably means that Runarsson plays in goal. And anybody who watched the League Cup quarter-final against Man City will know that that's going to put Arsenal in danger. And this might be the weekend that Ollie Watkins goes off.
Yeah.
I would expect Villa to beat Arsenal if Runarson's in goal. It's that much of an impact.
Manchester United 9, Southampton 0. Southampton making it an annual occurrence now of getting beat 9-0. But if you talk again about the Wolves Arsenal game, not the result, not reflecting the game and it being irrelevant, I felt like this about the Manchester United result, in that, okay, the young lad gets sent off early for a bad tackle, fine, down to 10 men. And psychologically, I don't. When people talk about Southampton being weakened, okay, Vestergaard, Walker-Peters, Romeu, and Walcott were the 4 players that I would have said would be in the starting lineup or have regularly been in the starting lineup that were out. It didn't feel like it was enough to say that they were really, really depleted in the way that, say, a Liverpool are right now. As good as all of those players have been for Southampton this year. But it felt like the red card on top of that, and then United getting into the lead at 4-0. Southampton heads down, capitulated a little bit, and they didn't need to. I think that they'll be disappointed in themselves. But at half-time, albeit that Greenwood goal that he should have played advantage and then scored, could have made it 5. But let's say 4-0. I honestly felt at half-time, United probably will score maybe 2 more, but not more than 2 more. And when they went to 6-0, I thought, you know what? Okay, it's probably just going to play out now. Bednarek getting a red. And then in the last 5-7 minutes, just literally was giving up. As good as United were, I just feel like Southampton, they didn't do themselves justice. They probably are disappointed in themselves more than anything else. But I don't think they'll play that badly. In the same way, like the Leicester game 9-0, they're not going to play that badly week in, week out. We know they're better than that, right?
Yes. Let's start with some myth busting in the first instance. So Southampton's XG at Manchester United, just as a point, was higher than Tottenham's at Brighton on Sunday.
Che Adams' goal gets allowed because his armpits offside or whatever. And it's a different game a little bit.
Have you seen the miss when Redmond put it on a plate for him as well?
Yeah.
I mean, look, it obviously doesn't affect the result.
The goal, to be honest with you, because non-patrons we were debating Che Adams in our differential team. The goal got me thinking, James is going to give me something because he was saying, let's play Che Adams. Gets disallowed. I'm like, at least I can give it back. And then he made the miss, and it really, all I thought at that moment was, good, told you so. He's rubbish.
No, the answer to that is that it was right to play Che Adams because he had chances.
Of course, he could have scored 2.
And
you're
knows?
You're right.
Who knows? If they stay on the game with 11 men, then who knows what happens, right?
Of course.
This was different to the Leicester defeat. And it was different for a number of reasons. One, you've mentioned, I know you're saying there's a few, listen, Diallo on top of Romeo is like missing both, if that makes sense. You say first teamer, but then Diallo is the replacement. And that's what's meant they've had to play a kid into central midfield. And we can't defend him. What's your boy's name? Jankovic, young Polish under-21 international. That challenge is so bad. We're going to excuse a lot of things that happened to Southampton. We cannot excuse that tackle. It's an awful challenge, definite red card. So you kind of say they're missing more. So missing Romeo, Diallo as a partnership. And because of that, obviously couldn't use Ward-Prowse, which is basically the cover at right back, because they really tried to sign a right back on deadline day and they couldn't find anything that was interesting enough. What's fascinating is it's only a week ago that Vokins and Valerie played at fullback against Arsenal. Valerie has been loaned to Birmingham. Vokins has been loaned to Sunderland. So it shows what they thought of their predicament in that position. So they have a real issue actually going forward in potentially covering the fullback areas. But I think the thinking was, right, if we can't get anyone, fine, Diallo's integrated into the squad now, you can play Ward-Prowse at right back. But obviously they've ended up now playing probably third or fourth choice right back in Ramsey, who's a young boy at right back. And obviously under the circumstances, it become a very, very difficult game for him. Whereas the Leicester game, it was basically their strongest team. And they just got bad. There were similarities in terms of the early red cards for Bertrand and then Jankovic on this occasion. But against the Leicester, they were completely passive in the game. They were a passenger for the whole game. This game, there were incidents like the Adams goals and miss when they were trying to be a part of the game. You know, I've ended up with Danny Ings playing left wing, for example, who then on the first goal, he doesn't track Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but it's not his nature to end up back in his own 6-yard box. And Ryan Bertrand sillily ducks out of the cross when it comes. And I think you've got to put your head on it and take a risk that it could be an own goal, like what happened to Bednarek for, I think, the third goal. This wasn't like the Leicester game.
Yeah, definitely not.
It wasn't.
Definitely not.
To say it wasn't as bad is not correct, because obviously, if you lose 0-0, 9-0, that's a disaster. There's no circumstance where you should be ever losing a game of football 9-0. That is a disaster. But there were things in this game that made it mitigate the circumstance. The other myth that people seem to have in their head is that after the Leicester game, Southampton suddenly went on a run immediately. That did not happen. So afterwards, they played Manchester City twice in a League Cup match and then in the league. Now, in the league game, they were winning 1-0 at the Etihad till very late and lost 2-1. But then after that, they lost 2-1 at home to Everton. Now, that's not Everton of now. That's the Everton, the Rex that couldn't win away games. Admittedly, they've won 4 in a row away from home now. But last year couldn't win, excuse the pun, toffee away from home. So they didn't recover instantly. Then the results improved after a couple of weeks. And I mentioned to you on one of the pods last week that I think they'll have problems till the fixtures calm down in terms of the amount of games that they have, because they're now picking up injuries. They like to play with intensity, and I think it's bothering them at the moment. Once they get beyond game week 24, then the fixtures in terms of having to play midweek and stuff stops, unless they have to play Man City in a midweek, which I think is likely to be in 26. And they could also have a double in another week because they might have to rearrange games with Leeds and Tottenham, but it probably wouldn't be till after 26. Actually, that's wrong. I think they'll end up playing Leeds in 26, and I think they'll play Man City in 27. So there could be a couple more doubles from coming back to back. So Leeds in 26, City in 27, I think is the most likely. But I think that little break of not having fixtures in midweek between 24 and 26 would potentially do them the world of good. Get people like Vestergaard, Romeo, Walker-Peters, get them all back fit. Get Minamino, who they've got in from loan, gives them another attacking option, which kind of backs up for Walcott's injury, which I presume he'll be out for a while. So once they get the squad fit, once they start having the kind of games twice a week, they'll be in a better place and they'll recover again and they'll do better again. We're probably in a position now where suddenly they're possibly going to find it quite difficult to finish top half because of the quality of the sides above them. But it's no drama. This is not like the 9-0 from last season. It's not as bad.
Despite the result, I'm short term, yes, I'm put off Southampton assets. I mean, I don't own any anyway. But long term, I'm not put off Southampton as a team. And I'm not any more inspired to buy Manchester United assets, despite the fact that they've won 9-0. Now, I say that owning Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford, who obviously returned for me finally after sitting in my team for a while. I just feel like, 9-0. I'm glad the United points were shared around amongst everyone, because then it didn't mean that any one particular player could have massively hurt me. And we just move on. I don't think there's much more from that. Is there anyone from United that you suddenly think, you know what, I want to buy these?
I mean, look, Everton, West Brom, Newcastle in the next 3 before a probable double against Chelsea away and Palace away in 26. Sounds quite nice. I've got Bruno. It means that with that fixture list that he's obviously not going anywhere. But to add to it, I can't see it. Lots of talk of Luke Shaw at the moment. But the only time
because we talked about how he doesn't get any attacking returns, and Bastard popped up with 2 assists.
But it's not a lie, is it? And I think it's only 2 goals scored was the stat that we gave out, and that hasn't changed. I mean, he's ended up from a position here that should have been probably a 14 or 15 point. He's ended up with a 7 because he came off at half time. So you have to look beyond that. But generally speaking, he's not a player that gets massive returns. Now, 4.9 million, if you want to buy him with them fixtures coming up, I'm not particularly going to tell you no, especially if you want to bin someone like Robertson or Trent, for example. It's fine. It's reasonable. It's not of interest to myself personally, because even in this game, they should have conceded. Yeah, they should. I mean, Che Adams, forget the disallowed goal, which is we could argue about for the whole podcast. Che Adams is missed. He has to score. Shout out for Jan Bednarek. Now entered into FPL folklore with a -7. 9 goals conceded, I believe, is worth -4. Also an own goal and a red card. The red card is disgusting. And the reason it's disgusting, and I'll sum it up very shortly. Anthony Martial attempts to initiate contact by diving. This is not an accusation at Manchester United, because Tottenham, my club, Son dives, Kane dives. We've all got divers, right? But we want to get diving out of the game. I can't believe that they go and view the decision on VAR and decide to upgrade it to a red card when they are watching. If he gives a red card in the first instance and they go, don't look at it, carry on. Under the laws, it's a red card. But then to actually physically go and look at it together and not decide that Anthony Martial is diving, I don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah,
it's like we're pro diving. We're saying it's okay to dive.
Yeah. The way you can even tell, so the commentators, obviously, it was quite a long gap from the foul to then VAR checking it for a few minutes, then getting the ref to go over. And all the talk was about whether or not a penalty was going to be given. That was it. There was no talk about did Bednarek commit a red card offence. There was no talk about red card. It was, is that a penalty or is it not? So then the ref walks all the way back and you're thinking, penalty, no penalty, penalty, no penalty. And then the red card came out and you're like, it didn't feel like that was what was under discussion or that was what the VAR was even looking at. I felt like it was penalty or no penalty, but there's no chance that if the penalty is given, it's not a red card and a penalty. It just felt stupid, to be honest with you. I'm completely with you. That's why it just didn't feel like a normal, sensible game of football that you can make sense out of. You just leave it be.
A little bit on common sense just on the Bednarek. Does anybody really think that deserves to be a red card?
No.
Does anybody really think that the David Luiz one deserves to be a red card?
No.
The David Luiz one, the guy pulls his foot back to shoot. And Luiz is running past him because I think Luiz wants to get back on the line because he thinks he's going to go around the goalkeeper. And that's his only chance of being able to stop it. So Luiz is kind of getting it out of the way. As Jose goes to shoot, his foot comes back and strikes the back of Luiz's knees. You could argue that he kicks Luiz accidentally, and that's Luiz getting sent off. What's Luiz meant to do? Oh, he's going one-on-one. I'll just stand. Luiz doesn't try and make any contact with him. And Bednarek is also... I heard someone comment and say Bednarek shouldn't be there. So the ball goes behind Bednarek and he turns, and Martial's there. And he thinks, fuck, Martial's going to beat me. I have to kind of flip my body and get out the way. We're not using common sense in refereeing. We should just say, look, okay, by law, he's not played the ball. This guy is doing everything in his power to try and get out of the way. and Martial is going down before there is any contact. It's wrong. It's like referees are applying the factual laws of the game. The whole point of going to the screen is that the referee who's managing the game still manages the game. He's not. He's not using any common sense, and it's not just Mike Dean. There's loads of them at the moment.
Let's try and draw a line. I mean, there wasn't any red cards yesterday, was there? So we'll draw a line on the refereeing and VAR because I think we all share the same opinions on it. Newcastle 1, Crystal Palace 2. I didn't watch this, but you managed to get most of it.
Did you? No, I watched this game, and it was.
I heard from people that it should have been 5-2 to Newcastle at half time. Like Newcastle attacked the game and played well.
The first half
fans were quite happy with it.
Was interesting. My intention had been to watch Manchester United, and to be honest, I just got Harry out the bath, and it was like 2 minutes gone, and I saw Shelby scored, and I went, well, I'll put that on quick, see if I catch the goal. So sort of replay of the goal, and then immediately my eyes were fixed onto the game because of what Newcastle did with their shape, and I was like, this is staying on. So Newcastle, basically, they were setting traps without the ball. To be honest, someone did message me and say they were doing this at Everton as well, but I think I was probably too shocked and more watching Everton stylistically that I didn't notice. We're basically, when without the ball, Wilson was going right and Ryan Fraser was going left and Almiron was staying centrally. This was only without the ball. And they were setting up traps in terms of forcing Palace into the fullback areas on the ball and then trying to exploit them and press them in those kind of areas. And for 20 minutes, Newcastle were very good, but interestingly, without the ball. And what's different about it is, obviously, normally they just sit in, right? You know them. If they're happy with it, we'll sit off the ball, we'll be frustrating, go and break us down. Graham Jones was recently, do you know the name, Suj?
I do not. Graham
Jones is a new first-team coach at Newcastle. He's gone in to help Steve Bruce. He's been there for a week. He's come from Bournemouth. Bournemouth have just sacked their manager, Jason Tinnion.
Yeah, they have.
After 4 defeats. And Newcastle suddenly looked like a football team. Now, there was a lot that was wrong with Newcastle in this game. By the end, I mean, Andros Townsend missed of the season, basically, at the end, barred Timo Werner's against Leeds, probably. And the scoreline should look more comfortable. And in the final half hour, Newcastle did not look like they were going to score at all. They kind of run out of ideas. But I saw enough there that tells me something tactically different might be happening. Now, I don't know a lot about Graham Jones, but what I can tell you is what I saw in the first 25 to 30 minutes last night, they ain't got a lot to do with Steve Bruce. Yeah. He ain't suddenly come up with that. So someone is now implementing something new in Newcastle. When you try and implement new philosophies or new tactics, quite often you are going to find erratic results because sometimes they're going to fly and it feels nice, and sometimes it's going to be a strain on you to do the repetitive news cycles over and over for 90 minutes. And Newcastle
players... It depends on the opposition as well, right? So
of course.
Certain strategies will work against certain teams and not against
Newcastle's players have had the mentality for 4 or 5 years now, for those who've been around long enough. Low block, defensive, get behind the ball when we're in front, etc. This was different. And I think what we'll find in the short term is that Newcastle are going to start scoring goals. And they might also be conceding more goals. And that's the relevance of why I mentioned it.
Kevin Keegan, Newcastle back in the
No. We're not saying that at all. But what we're saying is that they are trying something different tactically. And when that happens, you can get things that are erratic and unexpected, like them going and deserving to win at Everton, who then won at Leeds last night, for example. And what I saw in the first 20 minutes last night, if you'd have told me watching the game that Palace were going to come back and win, I wouldn't have believed you. Because I was so impressed with what they were trying to do. And once Palace equalised, the confidence went a bit. It was like, oh, we could have been 2-0 up here and stuff. And it just went a little bit. And the goals they conceded are bad, but can happen. I mean, Cahill's winning goal comes from an accidental block by Batshuayi, where he doesn't even see the Newcastle marker trying to get to Cahill, although Cahill still would have got there. And the first goal was really well hit by Riedererode after good link up from Palace's left, which we speak about all the time. But it's a deflection that kind of kills Darlow at the end as well. So There was some promising signs here for Newcastle, actually. No one's saying go and buy their players. I'm not saying that at all.
For both clubs as well, right? Because
it's
Crystal
more
Palace
be
now...
aware that their games in the near future, I think, might have more goals. I think that's the product of what might happen here. For
people
Palace,
that own Callum Wilson, for example, maybe take it out and don't sell.
Hold him.
What about Crystal Palace? Because obviously Zaha now could have this muscle injury. We don't know what the status is. They don't win without him. So are they going to get back to not winning?
That's well known. We don't know the extent of Zaha's injury at the time of recording, but I would suggest it was muscle, and I would suggest he's very unlikely to play against Leeds this week. We all know what that means for Palace, basically. That game against Leeds, actually, in midweek could be quite fun. They do have a brilliant run of fixtures. Because of Zaha's injury, I know people are going to start talking about Eze. It was obviously his assist for Cahill's goal. I don't think you can't. I don't know. You can justify buying an Eze when you've got Souček, Rafinha, Gundogan all at cheaper, all doing bits. I don't see that. Unless you feel like, I'm so templatey, I need a differential. Do you want your attacking differential to be a Crystal Palace player? Really? I know the fixtures are decent, but actually, I think the fixtures when you drill into them, a little bit more deceptive. So I wouldn't see them getting anything at Leeds without Zaha. Then it's Burnley at home, frustrating. Brighton away, now frustrating, right? They've got 4 clean sheets in a row. And then Fulham at home. And Fulham, yesterday was the first time Fulham have been beat by more than 2 goals in a game. By more than a goal in a game, other than Man City, since they won at the King Power in game week 8 or 9, whenever that was. So they don't get beat by many. So I think the fixtures deceptively look good, and maybe they're not. And without Zaha, I wouldn't go anywhere near them. Newcastle's fixture run is not bad either, just to highlight that very briefly. And that's why I kind of say hold on to Callum Wilson, for example. Southampton at home now, which...
depleted Southampton.
That's the point, isn't it? Yeah. And to be honest, depending on what players they have available, because obviously Bednarek's going to be suspended now as well, might be dependent on what happens. If Southampton go over a similar side to what they had at Newcastle, at United, they may well get beat at Newcastle. There's Chelsea away, Man United away. It's difficult. So you may want to jump off then. But then suddenly after that, it's Wolves, West Brom. And it might be Wolves and Brighton in a double, then West Brom, which is not so bad. So I think you would definitely hold this week, then maybe reassess afterwards. I think that makes Chelsea and Manchester United assets more interesting for the fixtures in 24-25, because I can see Newcastle conceding more goals in upcoming games. It might be a bit of pain for a bit better. What I saw tactically tells me that they'll stay up in spite of the result.
Well, yeah. And obviously other teams have been losing in and around the bottom as well. Yesterday's game started with Burnley 0, Manchester City 2. I think Burnley must be glad. I mean, in the commentary again, they were reeling off some of the stats. They're ridiculous. Like 8 of the last 10, they'd conceded 4 or 5 goals. They'd lost X, Y, Z. To come out of this with just the 2-0, I think Burnley are probably quite glad. They didn't really threaten throughout the game at all. City were their usual crisp passing, nice movement, good interchange, very controlled, mopped up everything at the back. I think without Wood and Barnes, they were never going to cause them much trouble anyway, because they do have that physical presence that you think might cause them problems, but they just didn't. And when they needed it, City found that extra gear to create some chances and score some goals. And could have been a couple more. Mahrez obviously offside and what have you. Really good from City. Yeah, I regret buying Foden rather than Gundogan now.
Why did you regret it?
Gundogan's play, his position and is just his general all-round play. He's going to get attacking returns. He's filling KDB's role at the moment. Now, Gundogan, I don't see him getting dropped. I think Foden is more likely to get rotated than Gundogan. And the thing that I love with Gundogan, when he put the assist in, he ran into that channel. You know, he didn't look up. He literally, the ball came and he crossed it without looking up because he knew someone would be in the middle, in the centre there. And I just love that. I just think when you trust your teammates to know either Sterling or Jesus is going to get in the centre, I'm just going to put it in the right place. I just loved it. I just looked at him and I thought, you know what, you're all right, you are.
I mean, you're talking about the comparison with KDB. Who did you think of?
No, but he's filling the role that's left potentially.
No. To be honest, I think he's valid because for Sterling's goal, the first thing that comes to my mind was that's a KDB cross.
Yeah.
Picking up that position that KDB picks up in terms of in between centre back and full back, slide me in, I'll smash it in. It was a KDB assist just by Gundogan. So I can see the comparisons. It's almost like he feels freer. A little bit of, the main man's not here, and I am a good footballer. No, it's interesting. No one's bringing out the stats about how City always lose when Gundogan plays at the moment, are they? Because he was probably best player on the pitch as well last night. Cancelo again. he's such a good footballer, and he should score in the first half as well. It was another real near miss for owners, but at least you got the clean sheet points because that was looking nervous for a little while as well. But Gundogan, for me, over Foden, if you wanted to buy one now, I mean, be straightforward for me. I bought Gundogan quite recently, didn't I? I think before the Sheffield United game. Yeah. And it was never a thought in my mind for it to be Foden, I must say.
I felt like going a little bit different, but to be honest now, the reality is Foden didn't play and I had Souček first sub. So for me, it's like if Foden doesn't play and Souček's come on, I haven't really lost out here. In this instance.
Until he brings Foden on in the 89th minute. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
Mate. But then look, let's not even bother with a game of Pep Roulette, but Foden didn't play last night, so he's obviously going to play against Liverpool, isn't he, mate?
Not on the way that, I mean, to be honest, in terms of attacking output, the best two for City in the wide positions is what they played last night, Sterling and Mahrez. Right. I know Foden, he's joint top scorer or whatever. Listen, if they all played 38 games, my opinion is Sterling and Mahrez would outscore Foden.
And Bernardo and Gundogan helped them move the ball quickly as two of the three in midfield. And Jesus, he's no Aguero, but he gets in the right place at the right time and he'll finish the chances that get put on a plate for him.
I wonder what City will do at the weekend in terms of if they try and flood Liverpool by, I don't know, they could play Foden at false nine, for example, at Liverpool, or if he thinks, and I think he should leave someone, to be honest, Jesus to play because of what Liverpool got a centre back at the moment. They should have someone that's constantly on their mind. That said, Liverpool, because Henderson, for example, there is not, I was going to say not disciplined. That's not right because he's a very disciplined player, but he's not a natural in the position. Seeing the runners come in is quite difficult at the moment because he's concentrating so much on what he's doing defensively. So midfield runners could cause damage. It'd be difficult not to see City winning at Liverpool at the weekend at the moment, which feels, I can't believe that I'm saying that. But I can't see a game. I can't see anything other than City winning at the moment. I mean, Klopp's talking about saying Mane might not be back. Alisson's been ill. I presume he's okay. Fabinho, we don't know if he's going to be back. We don't know if any of the new two centre halves are going to be involved. I'm not sure they get thrown straight in for that. I can't see City not winning at the moment. What's your thoughts on assets though for the weekend? I mean, start, sub. I guess it's going to be Cancelo, circumstantial Foden, for everyone.
I can't drop Robertson, Salah, Cancelo, Foden. I don't mind dropping Foden to the bench because I do have a massive benching headache this week. As it stands at the moment, I have benched Calvert-Lewin, Manchester United, Robertson, Man City, and Lowton, Brighton, and I'm playing Soufal, Fulham. I'm playing Soufal at Fulham and Dallas, who's got Crystal Palace at home, ahead of Robertson. And I'm playing Souček with Fulham away, ahead of Calvert-Lewin. I've got benching headaches galore this week, mate. So
you won't be the only one.
It's a real problem this week.
I might have to mute the chat on my deadline stream at the weekend, I think. It's a valid point. I think, like, this week it's okay to be leaving like a Stones or a Diaz on the bench if you want to. Because chances are they're normally just commonly 6-pointers anyway, right? So I think it's okay to take that chance this week if you want to leave them out. Cancelo, I would absolutely not leave out if you own. And still, I don't think I'd leave Robertson out if I owned either. That's why I'm probably selling him because I can't bear to leave him out.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I haven't made any transfers yet. So Calvert-Lewin and Robertson are not going to be leaving my squad. Lowton may, but I don't think so. I'm not 100% sure, but that's how I'm bust at the moment. We need to.
Going to be a lot of difficult choices. If I buy Son, for example, for Lookman because I've got all that money sitting in the bank, and I can't tell you what I'm going to do till after the game tonight, and then I'll know. But if I do, then I think I'm benching Gundogan over Calvert. I'm not benching Calvert-Lewin. I don't care. He's scoring any game he's capable. I'm not benching him.
Well, yeah, we'll get to them in a minute. Fulham 0, Leicester 2 is another solid result. We talked about James Justin's 15 points. Whenever a defender scores and gets a clean sheet, you're going to have a field day, of course, but he's been so consistent this season so far. But Maddison's come back in, and the last 8-9 weeks, it's so consistent with James Maddison. He hasn't had the ridiculous price rises that a lot of players had. And I'd been eyeing up a move from Rashford down to Grealish. Maddison's similar price, give or take a couple of points. And he's putting his name in the hat now as a potential alternative to Jack Grealish, just because so many own Grealish. I feel like if I was to get Ollie Watkins into the squad, it gives me enough Villa coverage that I can go without Grealish. And we're going to talk about what happened to Grealish in the West Ham game when we get to it. That Maddison might be an interesting alternative. I'm just going to have a look here. Ownership, 15%, not huge.
I prefer Grealish's run. I prefer Grealish's...
Well, fixtures.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
I mean, he does have the doubles, but, I mean, Wolves, then Liverpool at home, Villa, Arsenal, Brighton, Sheffield United, Burnley. None of them put fear in my heart for Leicester.
Well, if Runnelson's in goal for Arsenal at the weekend, then I think that now potentially becomes quite a good fixture for Villa's attacking assets. So the only difficult game I see up to 29 for Villa, knowing that they will have a double in 26 and may also play in 29. The only fixture on paper there that would bother me is Leicester itself. Whereas for Leicester, I look at coming up and going, Liverpool, the Villa game bothers me. A different Arsenal, maybe then in 26.
Brighton defensively.
Yeah. To be honest, Sheffield United, no one ever batters Sheffield United. They lose most games, but no one ever batters them. So I feel like Villa's run with games in there like Leeds, Newcastle, what I've just said about them, looks better up to 29 than
there's people Maddison. That already own Grealish that may want to add a Maddison or another.
And for those who are looking to say wildcard in 25, I'm looking at Grealish versus Arsenal and Brighton, or Maddison versus Wolves and Liverpool. I would still prefer that as a Grealish, personally.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the Villa West Ham game when we get to it, and we can, because Jack Grealish was a massive part of what happened in that game. Leicester are motoring along really well though at the moment, and Maddison is a good asset.
Very importantly for them, the suggestion last night was that Jamie Vardy will be back for the Wolves game, highly likely, and Wilfred and Diddy might be as well. It's not been a brilliant week for them considering the Leeds loss, but to be honest, predicting Leeds games is nearly impossible.
And Liverpool lost yesterday, so they've still, kept that touching distance.
I think for Leicester, what they want to do at the moment is keep everyone below them at arm's length. That doesn't include Liverpool. It's keeping West Ham, Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, keeping them away. And then if it turns out that they get to mid-March, start of April, and they can still see Man City and Man United, then go for it. But I think he's probably more keeping everyone else away and making sure that it doesn't fall away for them like it did last season. No Leicester fan realistically thinks they're going to finish above Manchester City. If you stay close enough, by the time you end up playing City, which is not till after the blank game week, then beat them and swing, and you never know. But I think losing to Leeds shows that there are still inconsistencies in that team at times. I think Pereira at right back, Justin at left back might be the end up being the way we go now. I don't know how long Castagne's out for, but I don't think it's long. But I know a few have said, what do you think will happen when Castagne comes back fit? Well, I think this. I think Pereira at right back, Justin at left back, or Castagne comes back in and Pereira goes and plays right midfield. I don't think we'll know till we get there, but I don't think there's a concern for James Justin owners. I think that's probably the message in there.
He's now priced at 5.1 million. Not a bad shout if you're still looking for coverage. I don't own him, but and I'm not looking to go to him. But yeah, not a bad shout at all. Fulham, a home defeat, difficult home game this weekend against West Ham, and they find themselves now still 7 points adrift. It's slipping further and further away, this recovery, isn't it? Step by step.
Yeah. Next four massive: West Ham, Everton, Sheffield United, Crystal Palace. Absolutely massive. They could get another game thrown in there to 26 against either Burnley or Tottenham, possibly. And that's before they play Liverpool in 27 and Man City in 28. They need to get results now. I don't think that gap can get any bigger, basically.
Yeah, I would have said six or 7 points as a minimum of the next four.
They've won 2 games. It's all well and good me saying every week, look, they're getting better. They almost look like a decent team now. It's kind of like what Dara the Tinkerman said. You've got to turn some of these draws into wins. Not beating West Brom was a massive, massive failure. And look, West Ham and Everton, the next 2, I mean, they're not easy. They're not easy at all. You don't really feel like they'll get something at that point. And then it's Sheffield United, and then it's last chance.
Yeah.
But by the time that Sheffield United fixture comes around, I think we might even be looking at it and going, this is finished. Like, to be honest, like at the moment, I can see Newcastle beating Southampton at the weekend, possibly. Brighton and Burnley play each other. Can't both lose. So it's every chance it's just going to look worse, right?
Yep. Let's talk about Leeds 1, Everton 2. I didn't get to watch this. You did get to watch the whole game.
Yeah,
Dominic
really good game.
did return, and I'm happy with that. After his blank at the weekend. So
and like all the other forwards, could have returned more. I mean, he missed a one-on-one, which he made an incredible busting gut run to get there onto a pass on Corey late in the game, but then lost his composure when he got there and tried to hit the thing too early, and he didn't need to. And Bamford's assisted again here. He also deflected a shot, which Olsen did really well to save, and had a looping header, which beat the keeper, but hit the top of the bar. He could have hauled as well. Same goes for Watkins, hit the post against you, right? Callum Wilson
outside of the post.
Callum Wilson put Ryan Fraser through for a one-on-one. That's what I'm saying. All these
Antonio,
forwards, they all could have returned more.
Mings Antonio could have had with his left foot.
Exactly. Antonio could have had a hatful as well, right?
Yeah.
Everton went with a 4. It said to the patrons on the podcast Tuesday morning.
Godfrey back in.
Who?
Godfrey.
Oh, Godfrey. I thought you said Rodri. I was like, what?
No,
Godfrey. Yeah, and he was exceptional for Everton at left back, by the way. Did it? No, he played at centre back, didn't he?
Yeah. Dean played.
They left Michael Keane out, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they'd go with a back 5, because I just thought that would fit the balance of what they were doing a little bit better at the moment. But yeah, Godfrey at centre-back was good with Mino, and obviously Holgate played at right-back. They won the game, really, because of a spell they had in the first half, where every time they won the ball back, they looked like they were going to score. But I'm not sure if they looked like they were going to score every time they won the ball back because they got men high, or just because that's how it looks for teams when they play against Leeds. Like the first goal that Sigurdsson scores, Dean gets to the byline, he crosses it in. There's literally only one thing he can do with a cross. He can't get any height on it because he's stretching his gut out. And Strick just does not see the danger of cutting off that space. And then beyond that, you've got 3 Leeds players who have done really well to get back into a defensive position, and they're marking each other. And suddenly, into the picture from nowhere comes Sigurdsson, and he's got a tap in from like 10 yards. And it's basic things like that which will make you never have the reliability to have that Leeds are going to get a clean sheet, which means like with Dallas every week. It's all well and good saying, Dallas every week's got a chance of scoring from midfield. How often is he going to do what Justin did yesterday and get you the 15-pointer? No. I don't see it, to be honest. Great potential asset, not saying sell him or anything like that, but it's going to be a headache whether you pick him or not every single week. You're going to look at Palace Monday night, especially if there's no Zaha, and think, I want to play him again.
Yep.
I would think. That said, I think if Jordan Pickford had been in goal for Everton, Leeds might have ended up winning this. Olsen played really well for Everton. There's a few saves he pulled off there because of his frame and stuff. I'm not sure that Pickford would have got to, actually. Not a disaster for Leeds. The game was difficult for both teams a little bit because it was on the new pitch, and particularly in the first half, there were a lot of people slipping over.
I was going to ask you about that. Did it impact the way that Leeds played, or did you take anything from that to say
it was definitely better? It was definitely better, but there was a number of players on both teams who lost their footing at certain stages. And again, you had certain areas of the pitch that were a little bit quicker than others and stuff, but it was definitely a better than what they had prior to it being laid. And now that it's been played on, it should be fine, actually. So they'll be better for that. Leeds games are incredibly unpredictable. Incredibly. There'll be loads of people out there who thought Everton would win this game. There'll be loads of people who thought Leeds would. And there'll be people who gave them no chance at Leicester at the weekend. And there'll be loads of people who thought they had a chance at Leicester, for example. And you look at Palace at home and you think, I fancy them this week. That's a home win, isn't it? I wouldn't be surprised if it's not. It's just so unpredictable.
Dallas this week ahead of Andrew Robertson, just because I think, home tie. Palace are depleted without Zaha, and I think Leeds will give them a very, very good game. I'm going to take that gamble. I mean, I know it's a gamble with Leeds, but I'm going to take it this week.
Bamford, Rafinha, if you've got them. Dallas, it's quite simplistic. You hold them. I think the best moment to buy them is probably gone. We don't know if they're going to have a double in 26 as they stand. They'll either play Southampton or they won't. The reason that's not obvious is because Southampton could have other games to rearrange, possibly against Tottenham, or I think, or even Manchester City is a possibility as well. I'll talk about possibilities a little bit before we do Twitter cues. Everton, if you've got Calvert-Lewin, a little bit like what I said pre-game, don't suddenly get the hump. I mean, he should have got 2 in this game. Yes, there's a couple of difficult games to come in Manchester United and Liverpool in the next 2 of the next 3. There's also Fulham at home in the middle. There's possibly a double, we think. Fulham at home and Manchester City away in 24. So again, to be honest, at the moment, if you've got those Everton assets, I think at the moment it's a hold. If you've got like Luca Dean or something as well.
Yeah, I mean, we picked up Dominic Calvert-Lewin knowing the Fulham game was possibly an exit point, but assess it at the time rather than having to worry about making that decision now. Definitely a hold until Fulham for me.
Because of the benching headaches thing, there are a lot of people who are going to bench Dominic Calvert-Lewin this week. And I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do.
And not just the benching headache, but seeing him miss the 1-on-1. And I saw a lot of people saying he's out of form. I mean, he scored yesterday. He get himself in the right positions. But I saw a lot of people saying he's frustrating and he's out of form and what have you. Is that a concern as well?
No. How many times have we, I mean, particularly now he scored as well. He was not out of form, is he? You were as good as your last game and he just scored in it. Yeah. So how many times have we seen Vardy go 5-6 games in a row without scoring or something? Then he scores and it's 8 games in a row or something.
Exactly.
So because of benching headaches, I can completely understand why someone would leave Calvert-Lewin on the bench this week. Because I think you can even look at it and you can say, what's the chance of him actually hauling? All right, he might score. What's the chance of him actually hauling? My take would be that he's capable. Therefore, he'll play. As kind of seen in this game, 1 goal could be 9 points. And if you can walk out of that with 9 points, thank you.
Yeah. Let's talk about Aston Villa 1, West Ham 3, the claret and blue derby. Or not,
well, I'm going to leave this all to you, Suj, because I didn't watch the game. But I know what I do know is, I watched the highlights 10 minutes or so last night. You thoroughly deserve to win. And a few of our Villa patrons have basically said that's probably the worst they played this season.
And there was reasons behind it. I mean, the exact same thing is going to happen in 5 minutes when I finish talking about this game, James, because I was oblivious to everything that was going on at Anfield because I was so engrossed in our game, other than 10 seconds when an alert popped up on my phone that Brighton had scored. A few things to talk about. Jack Grealish, it really felt like when the lineup came out and you saw Fredericks and Soufal, and then obviously Jesse Lingard started as well. But when you saw Fredericks and Soufal, it was so obvious, okay, we've doubled up on 2 right backs because we're going to stop Jack Grealish. Simple as that. And you're like, you know what? If that's the tactical decision that David Moyes has made for this game, let's see what happens. I think it's not a bad decision because Jack Grealish can influence a game so much. And Jesse Lingard's going to get the headlines from what he did. But Soufal, he played this game as if he'd had Jack Grealish's face on a punch bag for the 3 days previously. And he'd psyched himself up for this game because he gave Grealish as good as he could. And he followed him around everywhere. And it wasn't just good tackles. He was giving him verbals, getting in his face, the odd kick as well. He basically approached this game as if I have a one-man mission to fuck up Jack Grealish's day.
I love that.
And that's what he did. And it was once that kind of pattern of play had been set in the first 15 minutes, you're like, you know what, we're going to give him trouble today. And he's not going to be able to affect the game. And then you allied in on the other side that Jesse Lingard, I mean, I'm blown away with how much energy and fitness levels that he could cover as much of the pitch as he could.
He played on the left, right? Is that fair?
No, he played centrally.
Where did he play? So did
Ben
Rama play on left? Okay.
So this was a 4-3-3 with the three in midfield being Rice, Souček, and Fredericks, that turned into a 4-2-3-1 when we or 4-2-4 almost when we had the ball, because Fredericks was then able to bomb forward. And for Fredericks' limitations, one thing he does have is pace, so he could get forward and get back and cover as well when needed. So we had the combination of defensively so solid, and we restricted Aston Villa to 5 chances, of which, a couple were all right, but there wasn't much quality in the chances. And then when we did get the ball and break, I mean, Jesse Lingard played incredibly well, covered the ground. He was popping up all over generally he played as a false 9 shadow striker. Antonio played on the right, and then when Fredericks was able to bomb forward, Antonio was able to drift in, and that's why it became 2 up front. And the thing that Jesse Lingard did that none of the other attackers that we have, Fornals, Benrahma, Bowen, etc., ever really do is get close to Antonio, so that Antonio always had someone in and around him that he could play the ball off to. And it just felt like he was a second striker come attacking midfielder. I expected him at 60 minutes, 65 minutes to be dead on his feet, and he kept going for 90 minutes. So what he's been doing off the field in terms of fitness was impressive. And then defensively, Villa made a couple of really big mistakes. As good as Cash and Target are, defensively, they didn't sense the danger, because when Antonio drifted in centrally, both Concert and Mings were getting drawn towards Antonio, and it left the channels in between fullback and centre-backs, because the centre-backs had gone too narrow. Where was Souček when he scored the goal? In between the fullback and the centre-back. Where was Lingard in both of his goals? And the fullbacks didn't sense that danger. And when we got the ball and we passed it from back to front quickly, that's the channel where we got the players in, and that's how we scored our goals. And could have scored more. 18 shots, 10 on target, and amazing. 2 things happened. There was at 42 minutes, just before the half-time whistle, Grealish popped up on the right-hand side, because he'd realised, fuck this, I'm not getting any change on the left. Let me pop up on the right. And he created trouble. And
the goal?
No, that was at the end of the first half.
Oh, okay.
3 minutes, I'm thinking, oh, shit, because if he now then just figures this out, that actually, I'm going to play centrally or right, yeah. we need to figure something out here. He didn't do it again. And then 5 minutes from the end of the game, or 10 minutes, whatever it was, popped up on the right again. I'm thinking, shit. And what happened then? Created a chance. So he's got to take a bit of responsibility for not figuring out in the game that I'm getting no change out of the left. I need to move and play somewhere else and impact the game. And he didn't. And I think a lot of people will watch what we did. It's easy to say, stop Grealish, stop Villa. It's hard to stop Grealish.
Yes.
Regardless of if you double up. But yesterday, what happened was we did double up. We managed to stop Grealish. And Rice and Souček and Lingard just ran their socks off. Like Lingard matched Souček for kilometres run on the day.
So are we all selling Souček for Lingard now?
I own 3 West Ham assets.
Jesus, you didn't just say no.
Listen, if he plays in that, I'm watching the Fulham game. If he plays in that second striker position,
and this is going to come back and bite you.
Listen, no chance. If he plays like he did, which is getting as close as he can to Antonio and breaking into the box, his returns will be more consistent than Souček's potentially. See, it's hard. It's it's not a straight yes or no, because Souček has been so consistent, and he's the best part of $1 million cheaper.
All right.
Lingard plays further forward. So if you're looking at consistency, you might get more consistency out of Jesse Lingard. I'll eat all the humble cookie and humble cake any listener wants to send me. And it's one game. It's one game, James.
So
But it's a game
are you
where
saying
he
buy
scored
Jesse
2
Lingard?
goals.
Are you saying buy Jesse Lingard?
I'm saying watch the Fulham game. And if he does the same thing in the Fulham game that
It's
he
too
did
late
last
after
night.
Fulham. They want to do it now.
You asked a question here. Are we selling Souček for Jesse Lingard? The problem people are going to have is a lot of people have tripled up on West Ham already with the defender Antonio and Souček. And who do you sell? Like my other cheap midfielder is Foden. Then I've got Rashford, Salah, Fernandez, and Souček. Like who do you sell to get Jesse Lingard? This is the problem that a lot of people will have. And that's why I think a lot of people will bypass it. So it's one to keep an eye on. If he plays in that same position with that same energy and plays close to Antonio, he will get returns and a lot between now and the end of the season.
Right, one word answer. You don't own Souček. It's been frustrating you for weeks. You've decided it's Fulham Sheffield United coming up next. I want to buy him. Do you buy him or Lingard?
I buy Lingard.
Wow.
I'd buy Lingard. And it's a bit punty, but Souček's up to 19.2% ownership. Template is causing a lot of problems, right?
Yes.
72 points for me this week in a grey arrow.
But Souček is still a relative
Lingard.
Differential. It might feel like
19.2%.
Yeah. Listen, he might feel like he's Twitter template, but he's not overall template.
Jesse Lingard's at 1.2, mate. He played as a second striker attacking midfielder. He's playing in the position that he can hurt teams. And he did yesterday. His running off the ball and stuff was incredible. You can't hype a player off one fixture. It's hard to. But if he can replicate what he did yesterday, he will hurt teams. And he will start. Like Bowen and Fornals have been two of our better players all season. Neither started yesterday. And you can't see us changing Benrahma and Lingard off the back of it. Yeah, Fredericks will drop out and maybe Bowen will come back in. But suddenly that allied with Antonio is an attacking four with full of energy, running, good on the ball, will break into the box when you add Souček in, will score some goals.
Very well played. Clearly it was deserved, genuinely. And you should be really pleased and quite excited.
I thought we were going to lose,
team's doing at the moment.
I thought we were going to lose. And do you know what I really felt at the end of it more than anything else? And excuse listeners for me getting into this West Ham loving, but it disappointed me more that we didn't give it a go against Liverpool, as hard as it is, because there was two different teams. But anyway, Villa had a bad day at the office. They defended badly. They didn't sense the danger for midfield runners, and Grealish was ineffective. And you could tell from Barkley's body language when he got subbed off. Yeah, Watkins is still a threat, still dangerous. I don't think you sell their players off the back of what happened yesterday, but it was a bad day at the office.
Couple of quick questions. I mean, despite everything we said about Lingard, Martinez should have saved both of them, shouldn't he?
The second one, sure. And
he should save his first goal as well, mate.
Yeah, I mean, he hits it hard. He hits it hard.
Finish. Great goal.
All three of them, they hit hard. So I can see like stronger wrists. Yeah, sure. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, probably. But I'm not going to call him out over it because he made a number of other really good saves. I mean, he had saved tier 2 by half time for Sky Fantasy Football Managers because I own him in Sky. I was looking, that's saved tier 2 by half time, mate. So I'm not going to call him out over it. He's been good and consistent.
Of course he has.
Yeah.
And Ollie Watkins' performance?
Good. Still full of running. Still trying to run the channels. Just complete lack of service. Like it's Grealish and Barkley who are threading the balls through to him.
But he's not normally short of service. They just had a bad night, right?
Yeah. I'm still considering Ollie Watkins.
Yeah, same as that.
Instead of Bamford or Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I've got no Villa coverage. I'd still consider buying Grealish. I'd still consider buying Dominic Ollie Watkins, and I'd consider buying Jesse Lingard. You heard it here first. But you just need to see consistency. He said all the right things post-match press conference, and he did all the right things about working hard, winning over his teammates, getting 3 points. None of this flash nonsense and loving the Instagram more than anything else.
One note on Watkins. It was him being dispossessed on the second and third goals.
Yeah, and we moved it when Liverpool scored that counter-attacking goal.
Good transition. Well, I spoke on the last pod about how good. Yeah, about how good Villa are on transition normally, and you did it here really well.
5 seconds back to front, back of the net. Lovely. Really enjoyed it. And honestly, I was buzzing off the back of that performance yesterday.
That's it. Everybody wants us to bash Liverpool now. Moving on.
Well, I feel like I missed something at Anfield. It was like, what have I missed? Because I was so engrossed in our game.
You didn't miss anything. It was a bad game of football. Well, actually, that's not true. I only watched the second half because there was no way I was turning Leeds and Everton off. So I only watched the second half. Liverpool had one shot on target. Salah still had two fairly decent chances in the game. One in the first half through a brilliant direct ball from Henderson, and normally he scores them. And one quite late in the game after Brighton were ahead, pulled back from Trent. It wasn't an easy chance. But what happened here was, remember after the Burnley game, we spoke about two things when they lost to Burnley. We spoke about lack of leadership, which has obviously come back into the team very recently with sort of Milner and Henderson back in.
And these guys started again.
Yeah.
Milner played again.
But we also spoke about fatigue, and we spoke about it being mental, about it being a mental fatigue. And those are the exact words that Jurgen Klopp used last night after the game. And I always think that's a really, really dangerous thing to do with players. Now, Liverpool have players with good characteristics who will die for the shirt and all that kind of thing. They're just in a bad moment. But suddenly, as a football manager, I don't think you should ever say that your footballers are mentally fatigued. Yeah, it's an excuse in public, but I think that for the players themselves, they start questioning it themselves. Am I mentally fatigued? Maybe I am. Maybe I am tired. Maybe I do need a rest. These things. Oh, and I've got Manchester City next. I don't think that was a good thing to say personally. Brighton won, and in the Burnley game, which Liverpool lost, on a different day, Liverpool win that 1 or 2-0 and nobody particularly says anything. Make no mistake, Brighton thoroughly deserved to win. Like, they thoroughly deserved to beat Tottenham at the weekend. They played good football, created chances. Yeah. They were brilliant. They had more chances, more efforts on goal. They were more effective in possession. They defended better. They defended brilliantly. There's one absolutely brilliant moment of Lewis Dunk in the second half where he wins a crunching tackle on the edge of the box, and the ball breaks out, I think, to Milner, and he's 25 yards out. You know he's going to hit it, and Dunk gets up and throws his whole body in front of it to block that shot as well. Jose, we need some centre halves, and I'd like Lewis Dunk, please. If Lewis Dunk is not in the England squad next month, that's something seriously, seriously wrong with that, honestly. By the way, Gareth Southgate, I noticed he was at Villa Park yesterday watching old J-Lings, mate.
He was
thinking of giving the 21-year-old first England call up.
I listened to talk. I drove this morning. I had a meeting to go to, and I put TalkSport on. Absolute sloppy journalism, because in the bulletin they turn around and they go, David Moyes said last night that Jesse Lingard's going to be playing for England soon. He did not say that in the post-match press conference. He said if he continues to play like that, Gareth Southgate will have to take notice of him. He didn't say that Jesse Lingard's about to get back in the England squad. But it's amazing how they translate that.
Let's talk about Brighton first, because after the Tottenham game, it was easy for me to criticise them. Criticise Tottenham and not speak about Brighton enough. It's now 4 clean sheets, and inevitably, with some of the fixtures coming up, Burnley, Villa, Palace, West Brom. By the way, the double could be Burnley, Villa, Palace, West Brom and Newcastle together. That's why people are asking big questions about Brighton assets. I would personally, defensively, pay the extra for Lewis Dunk at 4.8, or I would buy Webster at 4.4. I would not take a chance on anybody else. If Solly March, who hobbled off injured, is serious, and Tariq Lamptey is still not going to be back in 2 or 3 weeks' time, then Dan Burn at 4.2 could be very interesting. But genuinely, I would not take the risk with Brighton selections. Even with Ben White, I wouldn't bother. I would go Webster or Dunk. They are the guys who will play every week.
Liverpool assets cost people a lot of money. Now, we're in a situation where so many good underperforming, underpriced assets are performing, right? The cheaper players. That a lot of us, like you're sitting on 5 million in the bank. I don't really need the money anywhere. So the likes of Salah stuck around because I don't know where I'd go with another premium with KDB out and what have you. So they're almost lingering because we ask ourselves the question, what else would we do with the money? It almost doesn't matter. But do you think Salah, Robertson, do you have any fear around longer term owning them? This weekend, I understand City, difficult.
Robertson's
Would you move one on longer term?
Robertson's going for me. And it is highly likely personally to be Rudiger as a replacement. Again, I'll judge that after tonight. But that's enough now. That's enough. I think there's 11 teams that have kept more clean sheets than Liverpool since the restart period. And they're not. The thing is, we've always said about him and Trent, yeah, but the attacking returns, but they're not there. They're not there. The clean sheets aren't there. Even I'm thinking pre-game in the predictions I did, I backed 2-1 Liverpool because I don't even fancy him for a clean sheet at the moment. And with City at home this weekend, that just feels like the right time. It's a good excuse to come off. So
City have a good record against Liverpool. Generally, they do. They
do not have a good record at Anfield, though. Whether that matters at the moment, I don't think it particularly does. But historically, they have a very bad record at Anfield, Manchester City. But to be honest, I would ignore that. So it's the right time for me to come off. Salah, this is interesting. So last week he was shit. The weekend he was brilliant. Now he's shit again. Things if you sell Mo Salah, where are you going?
Well,
where are you going?
Or Grealish, or if you don't own any of these guys.
But most people are sitting there with money in the bank as it is.
That's
anyway.
what I'm saying. But Maddison's a better asset at the moment than Salah. So who cares about the money? We don't have to spend 100 million in this game. You can spend less if you want.
I've got 2 free transfers, right? And technically, if I wanted to move Robertson and Salah, let's say I take the Rudiger move, Robertson to Rudiger. And then, to be honest, if I move from Salah, for me as a non-owner, excuse me, prior to the game tonight, the best signing for me would be Heung-min Son. I then have over £10 million in the bank and don't want to spend it.
And 0 Liverpool assets, we thought we were going to win the league.
And 0 Liverpool assets. So Mohamed Salah for me is staying, personally. I had no justification to move the Premier League's top goal scorer. Yeah, do you know what? In terms of his price at the moment, 12.7. I mean, I probably wouldn't be buying at 12.7, but I bought at 12.3. So I'm not selling at the moment. When if I just look a little bit further ahead and I look at 26 and see Sheffield United as possibly part of a double game week, and then 27 is Fulham at home, it'll come back round. Even Everton at home in 25, I don't think that's a bad fixture for Salah either. So at the moment, it'll stay for me at the moment. I think I can't see where I moved out on. The other benefit of holding the money there is if I'm in a position suddenly where, crikey, I want to move Gundogan to a Rafinha, for example, and Kevin De Bruyne's back fit, then that's quite straightforward. Whereas you start thumping that money down, suddenly, let's say you go to your most expensive player, midfield at the moment is Bruno, and your most expensive forward is Calvert-Lewin. In the next few weeks, Kane, Vardy, De Bruyne are all coming back, and they're all going to be differentials to start with. You want to be able to go back to something there. That's highly likely. So don't leave yourself caught with the. It's very easy, I think, for a lot of people right now to get caught in a position where they spend the money and suddenly they're sitting there going, look at my midfield. I've got Son, Grealish, Fernandes, and it's all powerful. But then how are you maneuvering even to, say, downgrade a Son to something to then get a Grealish to De Bruyne? It becomes really difficult. So you need to be a little bit conscious of that. And that's why I'd definitely be keeping at least one of Salah or Fernandes about. For me, very straightforward to have both. And I think most people are going to carry both for the immediate future. But in terms of buying new Liverpool assets, forget that. They lose at the weekend and their title is done.
Yeah, I mean, 10 points already, assuming City win their game in hand. You're relying on City losing 3 or 4 games between now and the end of the season.
I think I've learned that this season is so mental that to completely rule someone out would be a bit foolhardy. But yeah, if it goes to 10 points with a game in hand as well, which you would expect them to win because they are who they are, 13 points we're in February. It's too much.
Yeah, for Liverpool, of course. But I mean, United are still in touching distance, and I don't think they can win it. but like you said, it'd be foolhardy to rule them out.
United have on paper 3 good fixtures in Everton, West Brom, Newcastle. So if they win them all, and then they've got City 2 weeks after that, then they can put a bit of pressure on, can't they?
Yeah. Good. Let's get into some of the questions and comments that we've had on Twitter, James. But before we do you want to give the listeners just a quick rundown of what they can expect from Planet FPL in the next few days? And then I'll find out some good Twitter questions.
Briefly. So tomorrow I'll be streaming on YouTube 3:00. I'll wait for all the team news to come in ahead of game week 23. Deadline stream 10:00 Saturday morning. Next week, happy to do the schedule now. Monday, Clash of Correspondence, West Brom v Man United. Gemma Baggies is my cat playing. Tuesday will be game week 23 review. Wednesday will be Sky, which is a big podcast as it's overhaul period. We'll probably do at least an hour. Thursday will be Clash of Correspondence again, rotation FPL footballer, Chelsea versus Newcastle. And Friday, Suj, me and you are going to do a bit of a special podcast.
Oh, nice. What are we talking about?
Strategy. And I just want to make a few people aware of certain things now. So obviously come next Friday, we will know all the FA Cup results. And even without knowing the fixtures, we can look at possibilities and have a really clear idea of what may be happening in game week 26 before the 24 deadline. With that in mind, if you don't know what to do with your transfers this week and you've got one, let me suggest that rolling is a very, very good idea because you will have a lot more information this time next week. I just want to make a few people aware of a few things in case they are thinking of making moves this weekend. So the assumption is at the moment that all of the game week 29 fixtures will go into 26. Those that are postponed, i.e. if one of the two teams involved in a game on that day play in an FA Cup quarter-final, the game will be off. It isn't the case that all the games will go to 26. And that's because some teams have multiple games to rearrange. So, for example, the one I've used previously, if Sheffield United beat Bristol City, Sheffield United and Aston Villa will be postponed in game week 29. But it doesn't necessarily move to game week 26 because Villa have games to rearrange with Tottenham and Everton. Interestingly, however, also to be conscious of game week 29, there are two fixtures that could go into game week 29 that we can't currently see. And one of them is that Aston Villa-Tottenham game. Now, I actually saw Ben Crellin actually saw a percentage number of the possibility of Aston Villa playing Tottenham in game week 29. Currently, Villa due to play Sheffield United and Tottenham play Southampton. He makes the percentage chance of that happening as 36%. For that to become a possibility, Sheffield United need to beat Bristol City and Southampton need to beat Wolves. That would mean Villa and Tottenham are both out of the cup. It needs Everton to beat Tottenham as well. That would mean Tottenham and Villa are out of the cup and their 29 fixtures are postponed. Considering Tottenham's fixture headache, it then makes complete sense to put Aston Villa versus Tottenham into game week 29. Ben Crellin's worked that possibility out at actually around about 36%. Manchester City Southampton is far less likely, but for similar reasons, Manchester City Southampton could also end up in game week 29. But for that to happen, before you even look at the permutations, know that Swansea needs to beat Manchester City. So just be aware of that. Not all of the 29 fixtures will go to 26. And there are, particularly in the Villa-Tottenham case, a possibility that that could be played in 29, even though you can't see it.
Fantastic. Nice rundown there of all the pods that we have coming at you. So wherever you are subscribed, whether it's SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, blah, even YouTube watchers, make sure you do subscribe and hit the notification bell. You'll be notified as soon as any content does go live. If it's not enough and you need to hear the sound of our voices more, not just us, but any guests that we have as well, head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL because we do an additional pod every day for our patrons, as well as Slack channel access, as well as some articles that James does, as well as the opportunity to jump on Zoom calls and all of that other kind of stuff. Patreon.com/Planet FPL. It's the start of the month. It's a good time to support the show. It does help us keep the lights on, all the rest of that other stuff. Patreon. We need more patrons as always, James.
Come and support the content, people. We'd love to have you join our community.
So that's a rundown of the public service announcements. We've got a few Twitter questions, James. you did say, as well as questions, come on, get it off your chest. What's on your mind? And I've had a rundown of the 45 odd questions that we've had, James. I think we can rule out 80% with 3 topics, which we've covered in
benching headaches.
No. 3 players more than anything else.
Suchek.
First is Suchek.
Yeah,
all sorts of comments. At what point do we start getting out on our doorsteps and clapping for Thomas Suchek? Suchek. Early guess on price next season. This is from Suj James. What do you think? Yeah, next season. And he's got a price that he's put down.
I think you're talking Maddison levels, aren't you? So probably 7.5, something like that.
I think 7 to 7.5 is probably likely. I mean, West Ham without Declan Rice.
It depends how he finishes the season as well. Like if he finishes the season great, higher. If not, possibly even like. I mean, 6.5. The thing is, the instincts to go high. Yeah, but is it 6.5 is borderline? Where I don't know if people buy him actually come game week 1 next season. I'm not sure.
7 million, I'd buy him.
Yeah, well, you think you would. But it depends on the price of everyone else as well.
Yeah, but then if Declan Rice leaves, then I don't know if I'd buy Suchek at all, to be honest with you. That would have a massive impact on his ability to break into the box. Steve reckons 8.5. I don't think he's going to go anywhere near that.
I can't see that. Unless he... I mean, the form that he's shown over the last month, if he sustains that over the next 3 months, then yeah, possibly.
A second player, James, pick who else is in the top 3 most mentioned names in the questions after Thomas Suchek.
Justin.
No. You did the whole symbol thing. I don't even know.
Oh, Jay Lings.
Yeah, Jay Lings.
I don't know if I did it right either, to be fair.
Turfy Topper, Jesse Lingard, yay or nay. But also, Real Debacle says, Suj, I think has just found himself a new FPL best friend after losing Leroy Sane. Is Lingard here and ready? Listen, if he keeps playing like that, I'll go into Jesse Lingard's basement all day long. He definitely give me a few dancing lessons. I'll give you that.
Wow, wonder where that sentence was going to finish.
And the third player, James, that's most mentioned is, we just talked about him in the Liverpool game.
Salah?
No, the other one.
Robbo?
A lot of people talking about Robertson. Is it time to get rid of Robertson as a...
I can't, to be honest, those who've listened to us longest will know I don't need to justify myself on how I feel about Robbo and Trent. I think they've been amazing FPL assets. And I've probably been blighted because of the historical with them, knowing the capability. I speak about the forwards and say capability a lot, right? And it's always the capability of those two, which is why I've always been a bit reluctant to let go. But I can't look at that and justify the money. As much as it put me back to game week 1. And I know I'm laughing at Trent's price, at how cheap it was. Yep. And I still think that Trent and Robbo are potentially were underpriced pre-game week 1. But the way the season has unfolded and what's happened with them injury-wise, now the mental fatigue, etc., I can't justify it. Even though I don't need the money and I could leave them in there, I just feel like, no, it's enough now. Move it on.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing, James. But I would feel confident saying that I think that if VVD and Gomez were still fit, that we would still own Trent and Robbo. I feel comfortable saying that. So yeah, we'll see. And you know what? It might bode well for next season because they might come in a little bit cheaper and all of a sudden.
Yes, it's true.
You know what? I'd like a bit of that.
This time next year, they'll be 80% owned. Combined ownership, Trent and Robbo, 75%.
At United, Caro V, this is a very easy one, James. In hindsight, was getting Zaha over Grealish to target the fixtures a mistake? Yes.
I mean, call it a mistake. You can't predict that the guy's going to get injured, can you?
No, but just looking at, I like to look at consistent form over a period of time. And I mean, Moyes said it before the game yesterday. Right? He thought that Grealish had been the best player in the Premier League this season so far. So everybody's recognising that and despite the job we did on him, every time he got the ball, I still shit myself yesterday. So, yeah.
Yeah, but then you're picking up a differential. And listen, everybody wants to be the hero with that. Let's not pretend that's within us. That one of the biggest joys we get from this game is picking someone like me and you did with Thomas Suchek in game week 1. And in that case, not working out and still sticking with it and going, we are not selling this guy. It will come. And it's the same, but a little bit different with someone like Zaha. You identify the fixtures. You know that not many other people are on him. You know that if it goes well, you can jump rank. And buying that sort of player is going to help jump you rank more than just buying Jack Grealish. That's why that's important to say. However, from my own experiences on Wilfried Zaha last year, and also seeing at the weekend that he wasn't actually up front anymore, that was not for me.
Peter Ouch. Nice. I like it.
Peter Ouch. No.
Ouch underscore Peter. Give the guy a follow just because I respect that
1-0
It's good.
in the San Siro. 1-0
He says,
in the San Siro.
James, your effort is amazing, guys. After such a season, I don't think I ever want to play the game again, but I'll listen to you once again. I'm like, you know what? That's fine. And the reason I picked that comment out is at the end, like I was watching the game yesterday when we were only 1-0 up and even 2-0. I was really engrossed. Got to the end of the game, buzzing, then checked FPL, had a good week by all accounts with 72 points with the red arrow, then logged into Sky. I'm on 170, 180 points in Sky and have gone backwards in that as well.
This week in Sky.
And I'm like, 50% of me, even this morning when I woke up, couldn't care less about the fantasy games because I was still buzzing with the quality of the performance. And I felt yesterday that this rest of the season for fantasy is going to be a slog because no matter how good a week I have, everyone else is going to have a good week. But I'm still going to enjoy it and we're still going to play some good football and that's fine. But I see what he's saying. The season's been hard and I really did feel yesterday after what I'd thought had been 2 good weeks with players that I own returning everywhere, not making any progress, it's going to be a slog between now and the end of the season.
The other thing with this is, I mean, it's such an unpredictable season. It's so difficult to even predict what's going to happen one weekend. Never mind have the foresight to know what's going to happen in 3 or 4 game weeks, other than X fixture might go in position Y, for example. I mean, the team's form is changing so quickly. Just genuinely put yourself back in that moment where Liverpool were beating Crystal Palace 7-0 and imagine that we'd be sitting here 5-6 weeks later. Isn't that a single person thinks that this would have happened? No one. So, like, form's changing quickly. You've got the lack of security in home versus away results. There are more away wins than home wins. It's never happened before. It looks like it's going to happen this season. There's a huge amount of unpredictability with the full. Plus, a lot of the shit teams in this league ain't shit. As, like, for example, Brighton have proved in the last couple of weeks. And how many times we said it about Brighton? Start picking a team that's familiar. Hallelujah. And you start doing things. So expect like perhaps even a more consistent Brighton team coming up.
It's funny because Talkshite this morning, one of the debates that they were talking about, we're never getting a deal or getting a show on there, are we? If we keep calling it Talkshite, is Graham...
I don't want one, thanks.
That you and Jason Cundy, mate, would be the best radio show on earth.
Tell you what, put me in a room with Jason Cundy, I might end up in prison, mate.
They were talking about Graham Potter as the best English manager this season. And I'm thinking, hang on a second. Firstly, you're massively disregarding Dean Smith. And because Brighton have had 4 good results all of a sudden, the chopping and changing and all the mentalness prior to that's being forgotten so easily. Yeah, he's a good manager. And yes, Brighton are on a good run of form. But I don't think he's the best English manager this season so far. I think Dean Smith takes that ahead of him.
Yeah, I think Villa's stride this season would I'd agree with that. And listen, half the Brighton support wanted Potter gone 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Yep.
Genuinely, that had enough.
It's amazing how the mood changes so quickly.
Yeah, and to me, even like, all right, the 9-0 from last year, most Southampton fans thought Hassan Hoot was going to go after that. None of them would want him to go now, to be honest, like kind of moving forward 12 months or so. I had a look, Suj. My average for the season is now at 60 points per game week.
Wow.
And I also had a look. I obviously started really badly. My average since game week 7 per game week is 65. That's a little bit slanted by the fact I've obviously got a bench boost game week in there and a double, which obviously jumps it up quite a lot. But I had a look at the guy who's first at the moment, who happens to be about 300 points ahead of me. He's averaging 76 points a week.
Wow. Yeah, it's a brutal season.
He's been top since around about the same period, about game week 8 or so, I think.
Yep.
And his history, he's never finished in the top million before, I don't think.
Wow, interesting. Before we recorded this show, I did say to James, look, tight turnaround between the game weeks. Maybe we'll stick to an hour and a quarter. It's already an hour and 35, James. There's a handful of listeners still listening. We're going to ask one last question, but I feel like I want to tell people to jump on Twitter, tag us, and just tweet a random word like bananas, because the number of people that tweet us with the word bananas makes me know how many people have managed to get to 1 hour 35 in the podcast. Because if you ain't listening to this far in, then you ain't going to know that we're talking about.
So now I've got to call the podcast Bananas.
No, you don't have to, because then everyone will know why. But
no, they won't.
That's a good shout. Go on, call it Bananas, and people will wonder.
I can call it FPL gone bananas.
Yeah. Go for it. Something along those lines. We're going to leave the last question, James, to Amber Redmond, as always. One of the best question askers around. What's the worst present that you've ever received? I surprised an Arsenal supporting ex. Glad that they're an ex, Amber, with Arsenal supporting, with tickets to watch them at Old Trafford in the home end. He was very calm when Arsenal scored twice. He was less calm when they conceded their 8th. I had a great time. Him, not so much.
The 8-2, blinded. Do you have an answer for that?
I haven't had bad presents. Clothing is one that my missus will never buy me, and it happened once where, you know, when you get a present, you open a present, and you have to be grateful and your thanks, and the only question that comes out of your mouth is then, did you keep the receipt? You know you're fucked straight away. And I've done that a couple of times with clothing, and then she just said, I'm never buying new clothes again. And that was it. But yeah, I've had a few items that I'm like, yeah, why would you think I'd ever buy that clothing? But yeah, when you have to ask the question, did you keep the receipt? You know, you're in for some grief.
That's class. I remember I was dating this girl once, and she was a redhead, and she looked a little bit like Natasha Hamilton from Atomic Kitten.
Okay.
And so anyway, this...
I don't know what she looks like, so I'm going to have to Google that later.
Redhead, cute girl. I mean...
Nice.
Scouser, so she could talk, right? But pretty girl. Anyway. And my birthday's December time, so I can't remember if it was birthday or Christmas. It might have even been for Christmas. She bought tickets for me to go and see Atomic Kitten.
Because you'd said to her that she looks like Natasha from Atomic Kitten, or did she just make that random coincidence? Like, had you dropped the hint before?
The best bit was, it was on a Sunday in February. I went with her because she really liked them. So she's bought tickets for me for my Christmas present because she wants to go and watch Atomic Kitten. So I go with her. And imagine this, me going to watch Atomic Kitten at Wembley Arena. Fucking hell, state of this. But not only that, it was on like the final of the Carabao Cup or something. It was, I'll tell you what year it was, because I remember I was in the pub getting absolutely blasted before this gig. So I thought, I've got to be off my head anyway. It was the day Middlesbrough beat Bolton in the League Cup final at Cardiff. And I remember the lads were like, you're not hanging around for the 4 o'clock game or St. James? Nah, call it a day, lads. And I'm thinking, I've got to fucking, I trolleyed off my head. I've got to meet this nutcase at the tube station to go and watch Atomic Kitten at Wembley Arena. He couldn't make it up. Should I call this podcast Cats and Bananas?
Yeah, Cats and Bananas is Kittens and Bananas. Kittens and Bananas. There we go. And if you stayed with us for an hour and 40, I love you, because it is for the listeners that we do it. And I do feel like we have a conversation that they're all a part of as we record the pods. Going to end it here so that you can tune in, sort out your FPL teams, listen to other pods and whatever else you do. Thank you so much for all your support. Hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll be back at you tomorrow with more content. Or James will be back at you tomorrow with a live stream. I'll be back early part of next week. Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe wherever you are. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck for the game week. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man. Ciao.